Welcome back for another David Siddons group podcast. I'm sitting here today with someone that I've known and worked with for a very, very, very long time. In fact, I started in the business dealing with, and it's Brian Shapiro. So, Brian,
it's great to be here.
Welcome
Thanks.
to the show.
It's about time you had me on.
I know. I feel like, so your office is literally upstairs.
Literally upstairs, and it took this long for you to get me downstairs.
I know. It's shameful, but we've got you here, and I'm really glad you are here. I particularly, and I've interviewed I think one other realtor. I've interviewed Ben Moss, but I wanted to interview you because you've been in the business for 20 years, and your mum, who when I first started in the business and I was just breaking my teeth on little rentals and doing a deal here, a deal there, your mum was always absolutely lovely to me. She never had an ego. She was always warm and open. She wasn't judgmental of the fact that I wasn't super experienced.
She loves you, by the way.
She's lovely. She was just a kind person. And I found that in the business that's kind of hard. And what we're going to do, which is maybe a little unusual, and again, we usually talk about marketing and business and, real estate, and obviously, I know those people who are watching are people who might be looking to buy real estate, and I know sometimes we have realtors who watch this show as well, is to be a little bit more human and a bit more exposed.
Imagine that.
A bit more open. Yeah, imagine that.
All right.
And I think it's a nice thing to do because you're someone that has kind of, you put out a lot of content, and it's really thoughtful. And I think that thoughtfulness in the business is something that might be lacking. So we're kind of going to get into that. And for those who don't know, Brian Shapiro, the Joanne Foster team are one of the top producing teams in Miami, and you've done stuff in Miami and Broward as well. And you even mentioned earlier on that you're doing stuff down in the Keys, all over South Florida. And you guys have obviously been doing it for years and years and years.
50 years.
50 years. Holy crap. And you can get lucky once. You can get lucky once, still a big house. But to consistently do it, and this is something that top producers, and I think this is part of understanding what a top producer is, to consistently produce. And that production isn't for the applause of, hey, I'm making money. It's more about if you hire someone who's a top producer, you know what you're going to get. You're going to get someone who knows what they're doing. So I'm going to shut my mouth now and let you make an introduction to yourself and who you are properly, so you do a better job than I can do it. And then we're going to talk about what makes a good agent, what you need to do to be good in real estate for both the agents watching and for those people who are looking for a realtor to know what is the characteristics. So far away.
Well, look, I think you did a great job introducing me. I'm not going to bore everybody with the bio. I was born and raised in Miami. I'm one of the few down at Mercy Hospital. And I grew up in real estate. My mom was the manager of Coconut Grove Realty back when I was born. I literally had my playpen in the office back then. And boy, were times different. Back then, the only way to survive as an agent was to be in an office located in a town because there was no internet. So the only way buyers could find properties would be to walk into the local office, and then the realtor would pull out this big binder that had all of the properties in it, and you'd sit down and you'd go through the properties. And so that's how I got into the business 49 years ago. I was licking envelopes. I was gluing photos on black and white photocopies of property information because you didn't have color printing back then. So how did you do a photo brochure? Well, they would print the info in black and white, and then they'd leave a big space in the middle. And you'd go to Eckerd's, which doesn't even exist anymore, and you'd make a bunch of photocopies of the one photo, and then you'd glue stick it in the middle of the brochure, and that was your photo brochure. So I would sit at home and I'd glue stick the photos. I think I probably made like $2 an hour.
You're a slave labor. Basically, your mum had you on a slave labor.
I'm not saying that. Mother's Day is this week, and I am not
true.
saying that. I love you, Mommy. And look at the man it made me. And so I've been in real estate since. I did a real estate tech company back in the late 90s, in 96 through 99. And I started actively selling with my mom on the Joanne Foster team about 15 years ago.
It's funny because tech is a side, and not trying to get off the subject process, but tech is a side of you that's been a big part of your real estate MO for many years. And I know you lean on the analytics, and you do a really good job of really being aware of what's going on in the market with the numbers. A lot of people tend to just regurgitate the brokerage report, but I think you're like, I would like to put myself in that bucket. We spend time really understanding what is happening and why it's happening, because that helps us see what's coming next. So, and I don't want to put words in your mouth in terms of what makes a good agent. That's my first question. My first question really is, like, what has made you, and what makes you today an agent that consistently produces year on year on year at a very high level?
Whew, God, so much goes into that. And there's a lot of different ways, of course, to be a good agent. It's like, if you're on a sports team, you could be a wide receiver, you could be a running back. There's a lot of different skills, superpowers, let's call them, that make you stand out in one way or the other. But I think that the common denominators across all good agents are tremendous patience. I don't think people in the industry, our clients, other people in the industry appreciate how important patience is in what we do. Our sales cycle is 3 to 24 months long, right? Yeah. I mean, the best case, it's 3 months. Someone calls you, they're ready to go.
That's a dream. That's a dream, right, my friend.
Right.
3 months. And it's good you say that, because I think people forget. We've talked about this off camera, selective amnesia, that people come in and they go, oh, this is pretty quick and easy.
Yeah.
I listed my house with you, and then it's on the market for a week, and then you sold it.
We always like to say, did you want it to take longer?
Yeah. But that week, the run up to that, the prep to anything, and the prep to the house and to your business that runs behind it, it's lengthy. And relationships, I mean, you just said it, 3 to 24 months.
Yeah, look, I have clients that I worked with for 8 years before they bought. I mean, that's not every day, every minute of every day, but, on and off for 8 years. And then the stars finally aligned in their life, and they, were ready to buy or sell at
How
that
do you
time.
have the patience to work with someone for 8 years and you don't get a penny until they buy? Because this is a really valid point. One of the stressful things about the business is the fact that when you're working with buyers, you're essentially working for free with no certainty that they're actually going to do anything.
The same really on the sell side. I mean, you have a little
that's true
more,
too.
but not every house is going to sell, especially in this aspirational market that we find ourselves in. For me, I play the long game. And I understand that while, the dream client is the one that floats down from the heavens with a suitcase, with $5 million of cash, and they have to buy today because they're flying out, to Venezuela tomorrow. I mean, those are the stories you tell because it happens once in your life, if ever. Yeah. Most buyers, and I hope I don't get in trouble for saying this, but a lot of people in the industry will say buyers are liars, right?
Yeah, that's the same. I mean, I think you're just saying what we all know.
But I don't believe that.
I
honestly don't believe that. And what I believe is that buyers live complicated lives. They're sincere when, for the most part, they're sincere when they say they want to buy something, and then life happens. Their kid gets sick. Something happens. They get busy at work. They lose their job. One of their parents falls ill. They go on vacation. Life is happening at the same time that real estate's happening, and the stars don't always align with your life events, your financial events, availability of suitable properties for them. And, I don't think that the average buyer comes in trying to lie to us. I think they have aspirations.
Yep.
And in the beginning, everything's exciting, and you're emotional about it, and you want to get going. And then life hits you, reality hits you, the market changes hit you, and you go through an evolution. And then one day, everything just aligns. You find the right house at the right time for the right price, and then it's time to buy. And so, yes, you can be short-sighted as an agent, say that buyers are liars, give up on people if they don't buy in 3 months. But our job is to put as many people in the top of the pipeline as possible, and they'll all kind of work their way through the pipeline over time at their own pace.
Do you think that as people are coming in, and I want to make this really current, because a lot of people have moved into Miami over the last couple of years, and they've just come in to look as well, and they've come in from across the country and, in fact, the world, that comment about buyers are liars is often born from just buyers are being poorly educated. They're not being given the right information, or the right questions aren't being asked from the beginning. So they get confused and they go around, and very often especially given how fast the market's moved. In the last couple of years, the values of the properties have gone up so much that people are getting sticker shock, and they're seeing something and they're suddenly like, oh, I didn't think I could get, I can't get what I thought I could get. And now they have to adjust themselves, and they have to reassess their situations, and they do take a step back and they try and figure it out. And I've had it, I'm sure you've had it, where I get someone who's been out with 2 or 3 different agents, and it wasn't the fact that they weren't real buyers, because they ended up buying with me, buying with you. But the previous agents didn't really ask them the right questions to understand what they really, really needed, and to put things into perspective, so they were able to make a decision and not get paralysis by analysis.
Yeah, look, Gordon Gekko said that greed is good, right? And I don't think that it meant that purely greedy, behavior suits mankind overall, but it's good because if you understand that everybody's acting in their own self-interest, then you can understand why people do and think certain things. And the reality is that buyers are just trying to look out for themselves, not necessarily at other people's expense, but that's their priority. They got to find a house for their family that works for them.
They just don't want to make a decision at their own expense.
Right, which but you can't blame them. Now, when you see agents, and you said that we don't ask the right questions, and on the one hand, asking the right questions helps us best service our clients, and it's critical, and hopefully we'll get into that more. But on the other hand, it helps us understand how this client's going to work with us. So a lot of agents who get disappointed in their clients, it's their own fault.
Yeah,
they did not take the time. They did not have the wherewithal, the courage to ask the right questions, to understand what this client's motivation was, what this client's time frame was, what this client's loyalty is. And then they'll wake up one day and be surprised, that the client went and bought with someone else because the client's urgency was actually more than they thought. Or they'll wake up surprised that this client's putzing around and wasting their time. But the client, was never in a rush. They're down in Miami on vacation. If they find the perfect house, they'll buy it now. If not, maybe next year, maybe never.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean they're not a buyer.
So you got into that, how to serve the clients best. Let's go into that, because I think that's a really important point for those who are out there trying to understand, as a buyer or a seller, what you need. Because sometimes what you think you need isn't what you need. And the truth is, I've seen buyers and sellers, as you have, being their own worst enemy.
Always.
So how do you see it the best way to serve the clients? What are your live by rules and what you stand by?
Whew. Again, so many
easy questions today, aren't they?
These are softballs you're throwing at me here. Look, we don't have enough time to go into all the ways, so I'm going to answer most of these questions with kind of, what I think the core is. And I think that the single most important thing in serving our clients, whether they're buyers or sellers, is to be 100% honest with them. And it is the single hardest thing for most people to do, because the truth is often uncomfortable. People today are afraid of upsetting people with what they say. And so most agents are afraid to ask the difficult questions. They're afraid to say the difficult things that their clients need to hear. I always like to say, if you come to me as a doctor and you have cancer, do you want me to lie to you? Do you want me to lie to you and say that it's going to be okay? You want me to lie to you and tell you it's going to be okay? Or do you want me to be honest with you, even if it's difficult, so at least we can do everything possible and make the right plans, and arrangements so that you can make the most of whatever it is you do have. But most people aren't willing to have those conversations.
Yeah.
And your buyers, your sellers deserve that. They don't have to listen to us. We can tell them, the difficult truths. It's up to them to decide how they want to react to that. But we do nobody a service, including ourselves, if we're too small, if we're too afraid, if we're not confident enough in our own expertise and capabilities to tell people the truth. And whether that's telling our sellers the truth about the price of their home, whether that's telling our sellers the truth about the condition of their home, whether that's telling our sellers the truth when stuff comes up during negotiations or inspections and they need to be pushed a little out of their comfort zone to make the decision they want to make, but that is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Or with our buyers when, they want to buy the house, but it's scary because it's expensive and it's the biggest investment they're going to make. And is this really the one? But they know it is deep down, but they just need to be pushed a little out of their comfort zone to make the right decision for them. But
I look at your ability to be sincere and honest, authentic. Authenticity is something that I'm talking about a lot.
It's everything right now.
Everything. Authenticity, how you brand yourself, how you view yourself, how you operate with your clients, your buyers, your sellers. One of the things that I've viewed is that that's absolutely key. What I've noticed is that it's the experience that you have, that all big producers have. And I understand this is hard for people who are new. And there's a reason why you would hire an experienced top-level agent. You don't get to be a top-level agent because you started yesterday. It takes years to do that. But that experience is something that we always say you pay for. You don't pay for the 5 minutes that I'm with you or the 10 minutes or the day or the week that I took to sell your home. You're paying for the experience. And part of that experience that you have is to know, as you said, to look at that buyer or that seller. Let's use the seller, for example, and tell them, I know you think your baby is the most beautiful, but there are some flaws on this house that other people will see.
Smartest, best looking, most athletic kid in the school, right?
And as much as I want to tell you that and make you feel warm and proud and fuzzy, the fact of the matter is that there are some things that you have to address. And if you want that incredible price, and we talked about the lottery win, I have to tell you and look you in the eye and protect you from yourself and say, I know what you want to achieve, but what you're doing right now is self-sabotaging yourself in the process. And I will not let you do this. And I'll tell you that this is how it's going to play out, because my experience has shown me 50 times before. It's like that movie, that Groundhog Day, where you wake up and you go through the same thing over and over again. You've lived that Groundhog Day with the clients. You know how the story ends. And you can tell you 50 times out of 50, if you go down this road, it doesn't end well.
I mean, what makes a chess master? 6 moves ahead.
Yeah.
That's the difference between someone who just starts playing chess and who's sitting there, what are the rules? What moves can I make? And a chess master who's 6 moves ahead, and it's difficult because we know when we're going to have that tough conversation, especially with a seller, that we could sour that relationship forever. I mean, we could literally lose
the distrust. You can lose the trust.
But on the other hand, would you prefer to lie just to get one more sale? Would you prefer, to not tell your clients what they need to hear because you're afraid?
That's another reason why being a top producer carries a certain weight, because I am not afraid to walk away from any deal, not because I don't want it to happen, not because I don't have the seller's interest at heart, because I'm willing to know that I'm not going to lie to a seller, even if I fear it might sour the relationship, even if I fear that I might lose the commission, because in my heart of hearts, I know it's the right thing to do, and I know it's in their best interest. And even if it blows the deal up, I have to say that. If you're not experienced, or you don't have that track record and you don't have the deals, you need that commission so badly. You're so like...
You're operating from a scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
You're more worried about your rent than your client.
And that's terrible for the client, because ultimately your negotiation skills are coming from a place of weakness. Often the person who wins is the person who cares less. And that's why when you get into negotiations, and I think negotiations is a good thing to touch on, because we talked about this before, how you said to me, and I'd like you to elaborate, the negotiation isn't just that going back and forth with the initial contract and getting to a number. You've got to go through the inspections, the appraisals, and then there are, all the other things, the addendums that can be lengthy. Go into that a little bit, because and I think you have some stories. Always love a story or two.
Boy, do we have stories.
Of where that can go. Maybe you've got one that you can think of where you think, okay, the negotiations didn't just start at the beginning. They went all the way through, a heavy process.
Yeah, look, everybody focuses on price. Of course, price ultimately is the most important thing, but there are so many critical terms in the average contract. And unfortunately, the average agent, even many good agents who do a lot of business, they don't understand the contract. It's 14 pages long, plus potentially another 15, 20 pages of addendums that go into it. And a deal is all about managing each side's risk. And a good agent, a good negotiator, is like that chess champion that I was talking about. They're thinking 6 moves ahead. They know all of the different things that can and likely will go wrong with this deal. They also have taken the time not just to understand their own clients' goals and desires and pain points, but also the other side's goals and desires and pain points. That's a great point.
That's a really, really, I don't want to interrupt you too much on this. I want to keep going. But that's a really good point, because how you're weighing up both sides of the deal, sometimes people always think it's us versus them. You have one common goal. The buyer wants to buy, the seller wants to sell. So you're actually on the same team, sometimes whether you know it or not. But it's always being kept sometimes as a battle of attrition. Which
of course, and we want to get the best result for our client, of course. But if we can't get the other side to say yes, there's no result. And the other side has their own goals and desires and pain points in terms of how much risk they're willing to take on things like financing or no financing, the time frames involved for inspections, different thresholds. Only when you can understand both sides can you mediate a win-win deal. Now, of course, we're always trying to win a little more, but you cannot crush the other side and expect to win. It just will not happen, especially not in a fairly balanced market like we find ourselves. And so it's super, super important to be that good negotiator. And talking about agents that may not be as experienced, and there's 50,000 agents in Miami-Dade.
It's a last check that I had, and I always get curious about this. There was in South Florida, and I don't know what geographical area they consider that. There was 137,000 registered realtors.
There's 137,000.
1.7 million in the United States of America.
And often, unfortunately, we not only have to negotiate for our side, but we have to handhold and get the other side's agent to do what they need to do to get a deal done, because they don't always understand both sides' perspectives. They don't always understand the contract. They don't always understand the market realities and all of these different levers. But you need them to advocate to their clients to get their client to do the right thing, because we're not, unfortunately, able to have these conversations directly with the other side's client, right?
Yes,
we have to go through the cooperating agent. And so, I mean, fortunately, the top, agents in our area do most of the sales, so we get the benefit of working with each other a lot. But like I said, there's 100,000 plus agents here, and a lot of times we need to figure out how to get the other agent to get their client to do the right thing, and that adds even more complexity to negotiations.
Absolutely. So, sitting in 2023, the market's moving a little bit. And I think people watching this are like, okay, so we're talking in broad terms about the real estate market and about how to negotiate, how to deal with buyers and sellers. Specifically in 2023, what are the challenges that you're seeing, and what are the most valuable skills that you need to have in this current market?
So, to me, there's two main challenges that are just bigger than the 50 other challenges that exist. And the two main challenges are inventory and pricing, right? Right now, we have started 2023 with the lowest number of new listings since 2010. Okay, that's 13 years ago. And that's coming off of...
and which markets are we... I mean, is this a Miami-Dade in general?
Right, Miami-Dade. So that's a 13-year low. And 2010 is no random date. That's coming off of the, 06, 08 cycle.
Yeah.
Nothing was happening, 08, 09, 010. If you remember, 2012, activity started to pick up. Prices followed in 13 and 14. So... we haven't started the year with this few new listings since basically that period, which was a brutal time in real estate.
Yeah, I remember it.
There's simply not enough inventory right now. And so the first challenge for all of us is inventory. If we had more homes to sell, we would sell a lot more homes, right? I mean, there's so many buyers out there. And the second challenge is pricing, because the inventory we are able to procure right now are from what we like to call, make me move sellers, right? They have incredibly ambitious pricing. They don't even super want to sell, most of them. They're just like, look, if you can get me this crazy, ridiculous lottery number, I'll figure out where I'm going. And so the first challenge is just finding anybody who's willing to sell. And then the second challenge is getting those people to price realistically. Because if you have a house on the market right now and it's fairly priced, which, by the way, is 80% more than the house ever was worth before COVID, it will sell in the first week, 2 or 3, with probably multiple offers if it's fairly priced. But there just aren't many fairly priced homes right now.
Why do you think, with the inventory after 13 years having an all-time low of inventory, what do you think has created that phenomenon for this particular inflection point in time that we have so little inventory? And again, I know you mentioned Miami-Dade and Hull, but if you get into, and again, we deal with the primary markets that we do a lot of business, we're running around all day, Coconut Grove, Coral Gables, Pinecrest, Ponce Davis, High Pine, South Miami. And other areas, again, that are, driven by those primary buyers. Why is that? Why do you feel that is just become so scarce?
Wow. I mean, there's several reasons, and they're pretty clear. The first is so many of the people who wanted to sell, they sold, right? I mean, we just went through a 2.5-year boom, and all the low-hanging fruit has sold already. Now we're in a very unique situation. Number one, I think something like 90% of homeowners are in under 4% on their homes right now. Because even if they didn't buy at record low rates over the past 2 years. They certainly refinanced, right? Some of them are in for 2.5, 3. If they sell and buy right now, they're going to pay 6.5, 7. So you're going to get half the house for the same payment. Number 2, people, a lot of them down here in Miami, the biggest group of potential sellers are the baby boomers whose kids are now in college and they're empty nesters, but they've been in their house for 15, 20, 25 years. They paid $300,000 for the house that's worth $3 million now. You know what their capital gain's going to look like when they sell?
And their property tax.
And they're homesteaded in on their property tax. And so you go, Mr. Seller, I can get you $3 million for the house that you paid $300,000 for 20 years ago. And Mr. Seller goes, wow, that's awesome. But where am I going to go? Because nothing is available. I'm going to get a small, inferior home in an inferior location where my payment, including my mortgage, my taxes, and my insurance, is going to be the same or more than I'm paying now. And I'm going to lose 20% to capital gains. So tell me why.
Sounds pretty unsavory, doesn't it?
You know, and then at the same time they say, and what's the pressure? Miami has evolved and is continuing to evolve into a top international city. It's not going to go downhill tomorrow.
Well, that you kind of jumped into my next question, which is there are the buyers who will then turn around and saying, okay, so people don't want to sell. The people who do want to sell want outrageous numbers. They want the make me move prices. Why the hell should I be buying anything and not just be sitting on the sidelines and renting? Where is Miami? Where is the market going? Because some people would turn around, having seen previous cycles, and said, well, I'm just waiting for the pop. I'm waiting for the bust. When do I get to see the whole thing collapse like a house of cards?
I mean, good luck to them. You know, this is a lot different than 06, 08, when nobody had any equity in their homes, and it was a mortgage-fueled business. Right now, people have more equity than they've ever had. Inventory is lower than it's ever been. And unless those two things change or there's some type of geopolitical catastrophe, which will just blow up the whole country or world, you know, that's not going to change. Yes, a lot of the gain that we're seeing now in prices is COVID related, right? Mm-hmm. Miami is up 70% over that time, but Miami's up 173% over the last 10 years. So Miami's up 100% without COVID. And whether it's 5 years from now, 7 years from now, 10 years from now, it's going to be up 100% again. That doesn't mean there's not going to be some lumpiness in short time frames, right? There's always lumpiness in the short time frame. But whether you buy now or buy in a year from now or 2 years from now, to think you're going to time the bottom, it's just not going to happen. We're going to look back. We used to think 2006, remember?
Yep.
2006 was insane for those in the business, and fortunately,
I started in 2000. I started when the proverbial shit hit the fan in 2008.
Like in 08.
Yeah, I started in 08. So I got to, sharpen my sword in the middle of battle.
Which is good. I mean, that's the best time to start, right?
Yeah.
But in 06, people were like, these prices are insane. This can't last. And look, to their defense, we did, have a dip in the cycle. But we would kill for 06 prices right now. In 2006, people thought that $250 a foot in Pinecrest was insane. Okay,
$250. Let me put that into perspective. If you go into Pinecrest right now, and this is a fun statistic that as I put out these numbers as well, there were 2 homes sold over $10 million last year in Pinecrest.
I sold one of them.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
This year, there's currently 16 on the market that are over $10 million. There's a number of sales already this year over $10 million. If it moves at this speed, we could see 10 times the number of homes over $10 million sell in Pinecrest that we saw last year. That's unbelievable. I mean, to give you that level of acceleration, I understand why people go, oh my God, that's bonkers. But at the same time, if you look at the attrition rate in Miami, we did the interview with the head of admissions for a number of schools. I don't know if you've got a chance to see that.
I did.
Only 1% of the kids are leaving. It was a very, very low rate. And I asked them what would be normal. They said 8 or 9. It's only 1%. So if you look at people leaving, people are coming into Miami, but they're realizing that the quality of life here is phenomenal. And they're not going. And unlike, and again, I was lucky enough to be a guest speaker at an event on Tuesday, Austin, Texas, Phoenix, San Francisco, these are cities that received a lot of people during COVID, and now they're down 16%, 13%, 12%, 10%. Miami, that's not the case.
So the buyers today who are going, these prices are insane. First of all, Miami, it's not that Miami's overpriced right now. We've been historically underpriced. We're still less than I can name 6 other similar major cities in the country, LA, San Francisco, New York. We're still less than all of that. We just were undervalued historically.
Sure.
But those same buyers who are looking at how expensive things are today, it's 2006 all over again. We will look back in 2033, and I can't even believe I'm saying that, but that's
give me
10
chills.
years.
Seriously,
I know you're gonna be 58.
Thank you so much for that.
We're gonna look back in 33, and 23 prices are going to be red tag special half off prices. So yeah, buyers can wait. They can try to time the bottom. They can try to find that elusive, too good to be true deal without it involving some significant trade-offs, like they're just getting less for less, not necessarily more for less. Or they can buy in to the future of Miami. It's often said that buyers like to look back 6 months or a year in terms of pricing, and sellers like to look forward in terms of pricing. And you either buy into the future of Miami or you don't. But we're not just fun and sun anymore. We've had 80 major corporate relocations.
Yep.
The first wave was just the founders and the most senior management. Now we're getting middle management and the ecosystems that are built around them, the law firms that have served these multinationals, in Chicago and Boston are all coming down. And something that people don't understand, that I like to tell people all the time, is this whole boom is domestic, okay? That international is typically 40 to 60% of our business, depending on the micro neighborhood and price range. Because of travel restrictions, Trump to a certain extent, and a historically strong dollar, which people don't understand the impact of strong currency, we've only done about 5 or 10% international during this boom time. Yeah. Now, with the dollar weakening a bit, the travel restrictions easing, a lot of instability in Latin America, that international is starting to come back big time. The board just put out that Colombia is the number one
saw
again.
That. Colombia, Mexico.
So what's going to happen when it's not just New Yorkers and Californians coming down, but it's going to be, again, the Brazilians, the Venezuelans, the Argentinians, and all of them coming down? It's going to just throw a match on the whole thing.
Yeah. It's what you basically referred to and gone through, and I've talked about this in the past, is critical mass. It's that party that got going, the music's blaring, everyone's having an awesome time. There's a party on down the street, like those kind of high school movies, and they're all standing around going, where is everyone at my party? That's what Connecticut and New York and California is feeling. I'm imagining this image in my head, and I've had it, and I know you've had it too, where you get the client and then they're now referring you all their friends because their friends have realized they need to be here.
I play golf all year.
The music stopped back in there.
Behind my house. I mean, there's no taxes. But here's the thing. I'll be at an open house, and the same buyer from New York that I've seen at every one of my open houses for the last 6 months will tell me that, houses are sitting on the market longer, prices are going to crash. And I'm like, well, how come you haven't found anything? You've been looking for 6 months.
Oh, my God. Dude, you are living my pain.
I said, until you guys stop coming here, And I don't see that happening anytime soon. I just can't imagine that happening. But look, it has gotten more expensive. Locals, are certainly feeling that pain.
Yeah.
But it's just the reality of Miami being the magic city.
I had that exact comment at an open house, and a lady walked in, very, very nice, smart, well put together, had been looking at homes, and said to me basically exactly that. I feel like I'm seeing more houses sit on the market, so I'm going to wait and expect those houses to come down in price. My comment was, there are houses out there with a seller who is the make me move seller, and they are being outrageous. But don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Don't let those few sellers with really, really elevated prices poison your view of what is a reality, that we don't have enough product. And until, as you put it, people stop coming, or some cataclysmic macro system collapse, economic meltdown, war, whatever you want to call it, happens, which seems wholly unlikely, I'm not going to bet all my chips on Black 58, because I realize that the odds are definitely stacked in the favor. Just look at the numbers. There is not enough inventory. The supply is shrunk. The buyers are still there. And that market, even if it might be stable, is going to keep going, clearly shifting. I'm going to segue slightly into it, because I think that you have so much information, and I'm probably going to have to get you back for another podcast. But given the changing environment, and given how we're changing our world and reality, I want to come back into how we're seeing changing behaviors within the real estate market, and what has, to a degree, probably, and it's kind of ironic we're doing a podcast, how everybody with a microphone suddenly has an opinion. Everybody with a microphone or a camera suddenly is out there presenting this TikTok, Instagram
Should I get up and
live.
do my TikTok
Please,
dance?
can you do it? We'll do it together. Stay tuned to no, we're not doing. No, do not stay tuned to the end, because you do not want to see me and Brian do a TikTok video.
That's the truth.
You never hear the end of it. But joking aside, seriously, what has frustrated, and again, we're both experienced agents in the market, what has become frustrating is this perception of what real estate is. Obviously, you've touched on what it really is, but it's got to drive you somewhat to despair when you see how, entertainment starts to, or reality starts to reflect entertainment.
Yeah, people have such a low view of realtors. I mean, we're like one step above and maybe even below a used car salesman, right? Like anybody.
We're right up there with drug dealers.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, in the old days, and I'm probably going to hear from the PC police on this one, but, back in the Coconut Grove Realty days, they would say that, realtors were all single moms and drunks, because it offered the ultimate flexibility in hours, or both. And people, they think that anybody can be a realtor. You just go, and this is the kitchen.
63 hours.
This is the kitchen, and this is the master, bedroom, and let me open the door for you, and maybe if you're lucky, turn on the lights. Yeah. Most of the top producers, not all, but most, are highly educated, have had other careers in technology or finance, work for Goldman Sachs, and bring a tremendous amount, of business and life experience. What we do is not easy, which is why out of the 1,700,000 current realtors, and those are members of the union, right? There's a bunch of licensed agents who aren't, realtors. There's only 5-6 million homes that are sold, right? So the average realtor's selling 3 houses. Yeah. How many did you sell?
I mean, if I do 3 houses in a week, I'm having a bad week.
Right, And so at the top producer level, you're dealing with really smart, really committed people who have invested a tremendous amount over years and decades in technology, education, systems, teams, marketing, their own personal development, and who work extremely, not just hard, but smart. And the average consumer just doesn't see that. They basically see someone who books appointments and who opens doors and says, this is the kitchen and this is the bathroom. And especially with technology, now that everybody has access to the properties, you can just go on and request a showing yourself. You could make an offer online yourself. Why do I need a realtor? And, you know, maybe for $200,000 transactions, you know, it's starting to become more and more commoditized. But at our level, the multi-million-dollar level, there's a lot on the line. There's a lot of very strong personalities. There's a lot of moving pieces. And I like to use the metaphor. I've had 3 kids. And, you know, once you've been in the delivery room 3 times, you're like, I could probably do it, right? You want the doctor there for when something goes wrong, right?
I don't want the doctor who comes in and, again, you get a license and you buy a home. It's not like, you know, I'm not a gynecologist, but I'll have a look. You need someone who has experience no matter what you do. And if you do something 1,000 times and you sell hundreds of homes a year, and if you look at our track records, there's a reason why agents will say, look at all the homes that I've sold. But the skill, the engine that runs behind a business, I know your engine. I mean, your engine it's a monster engine. Not only does it take a lot of skill and time, it takes a lot of money and the confidence to spend that money in the right way. My budget is huge, but I know, and again, my background, when I got into real estate, I didn't want to be a realtor. I did it under duress. My wife said, you should get a license. I was like, I was the director of marketing for IMG, one of the world's biggest sports agencies.
Even you had that
I have
mindset.
A degree in economics. Right. I'm not doing this.
Even you had that mindset.
I did. And understandably, because some of the people that I'd met in the industry were that way. And then it took me a while to realize, just like you said, the top people come from legitimate business backgrounds with a level of acumen, a level of discipline, hustle. We put this here for a reason. Hustle, focus, persistence, discipline, failure, because we've made mistakes many times, and when we stop making them, that enables us to be successful.
And by the way, risks, people don't realize the risks that realtors take. We do not get paid unless there's a sale. We will take on a listing, dedicate tens and hundreds of hours of our time and our team's time, spend tens of thousands of dollars on photography and marketing, all in the hopes that we get it sold. That's tremendous risk that the average person's not willing or able to take on. They don't have the confidence
to believe that, okay, this could end well for me. You have to have certainty, experience, knowledge. All of these things come together, and you have to know who you are and what you're doing and why you're doing it. I'm going to leave you with one question that I was asking you upstairs, and I said, "This is an easy one. We could do this
forever.
We could keep going." If you could change, Brian, 2 things in the industry, what would you change?
Oh my God, that's a difficult. That's a difficult question. I think the first thing I would definitely change is I would raise the standards significantly for what it takes to be an agent.
I'm going to pray that happens.
You know, 100,000 or whatever the crazy number actually is of agents in this small little area is twice as many, you know, as there probably should be. And unfortunately, bad agents cause a lot of harm to people and really give the industry a bad name. When deals go south, when they put up pictures of, you know, toilet seats on the MLS and all of the other stuff, you know, that we see. So the first thing would be to raise the standards. I mean, right now you can become a realtor for like $200 and a 60-hour class.
I always thought, what about, I mean, raising it to the level, and again, if we were to be running the real estate board, maybe we'd change some things around. I always believe that, why is it that the biggest investment that you're going to make in your life, you are trusting someone who may not have more than 67 hours of experience in a classroom, and then they are able to open a front door, and then you're going to take their advice? Why not, when you look at the series licenses that you get when you trade the markets, when you become a financial advisor, when you become a
CFA, Series 7 insurance?
Exactly. Why doesn't everyone have that level of, that degree, that experience, that knowledge?
I think personal trainers probably have a harder,
probably
on-ramp into a personal training certification than, realtors have. But look, the industry has a perverse motivation. NAR charges dues. They're the largest trade association in the world, and they get paid for every head. And brokers charge resource fees and desk fees, and they get paid, in effect, for every head. And the brokers just happen to be the shareholders and directors of NAR. And so we're not talking about this broker or our broker, of course, but until that model changes, you're not going to see any motivation to decrease the number of agents.
Well, I would say, look, we're not going to change that. Maybe as buyers out there, the first question that should come out your mouth, and I would challenge you to ask me this question, Brian, this question, is what qualifies you to be my realtor? Ask the question, and I'll tell you, of all the skills that we have, the experience that we have, that more than enough qualifies us to represent you. Because if you are hiring someone because they're your cousin's brother, and you're going to make the biggest financial decision of your life based off someone that you've chosen because they're a friend, then don't be surprised if it doesn't end well, and then shame on you if it all goes, sideways.
Yeah, I don't think you hire your attorney that way.
Yeah, I
right?
would.
You hire your cousin as your accountant.
Yeah, no thanks. Not my cousin.
not mine either.
So let's go to number 2. Let's finish this up.
Wait.
Give me your second one.
God. Number 2 thing that I would change would, and I don't know how to say this in a structured way, but our industry is seriously devoid of loyalty, because, especially on the buy side, there's no contracts. Yes, there's these buyer agreements that some people do, but in our market, it's impossible. And how are you going to enforce that, right? You're going to sue your buyer. It's sad how much time and effort, and by the way, we've been talking about time and we've been talking about money. I don't think that the average consumer out there understands the passion and emotion that we have for our clients. We've become part of their family, right? Like
the investment.
People think we do this for the money, and yes, we work to get paid.
There are easier ways to make money.
I laugh and I cry with my clients' successes and pains. Like, we want to do an amazing job, sincerely, and the pain of being betrayed by a client that you put so much time and effort into, not because you did a bad job, not because you were negligent, just because they walked into an open house and the listing agent told them that she'd give them a discount if they bought from her. Yeah. And the tens and hundreds of hours you put in, it hurts inside. Yeah. And I don't know how you would improve on that, but to me, that's a big pain point in the industry.
I hear you. I think be kind to realtors.
Love your realtor.
We have feelings too.
Love your realtor.
And maybe as well that, again, this is great that we're doing this. Be kind to each other as realtors. Talk to each other more. I think this kind of dialogue, we tend to, be lone wolf animals in the business. I mean, people are running around. I know many agents who sit behind their desks and they sit there frustrated, and they're out there and they feel like it's them versus the world and all the other realtors. Those 1.7 million realtors out there. And it's tough, and people go through a really hard time emotionally with it. And I feel like if there's more communication, one of the great things about the thing I've learned, the thing I love about the production of real estate at the high level is that we get to have dialogue with each other. And one of the benefits by hiring someone in that level that does have that communication skill is that they will open doors for you through other realtors for their product, for off markets, and for generally a better business experience when you have someone who knows how to connect with the other realtors. And there's a reason why Brian's sitting in front of me, because you are a very good person at connecting with others. You've always got a smile on your face. You're always warm and welcoming at an open house. You're open with the information that you provide. You recognize that the more open you are, the less closed you are, the happier you'll be. And ironically, at the same time, the more productive you will be and will continue to be so. And I want to thank you for that, because I know that sometimes it doesn't feel that way and it's tough. But I want to thank you. I want to thank you for your words through this. You're super smart guy. You've got such a head of figures and numbers. And for those watching, if anybody wants to come on the show, wants me to go on their podcast, Brian to go on their podcast, this is the dialogue that we love. Thank you for watching.
It's a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
And stay tuned for another episode of the David Siddons Group podcast.